Well, good evening to John Paul ISD Live. We're glad that you're here, glad that you've joined us on the internet, and we've got a lot of new subscribers. And so let me just share, for example, for all the new subscribers that we have out there. First of all, this ISD means Institute for Spiritual Development, which simply says this: we want to find ways to help you, interactive ways, that we can help you grow more spiritually. And that's going to be through a variety of different things, a variety of topics that we talk about. What we're trying to do is we're trying to talk about things that you probably or may not have, and in most cases probably have never heard talked about before or haven't heard talked about very much before. So we're going to try to work on those type of issues. Like, we got a great program tonight. We're going to be talking about angels tonight and some other spiritual entities. We're going to be talking about some of the perfect storm prophecies in Europe and other things that's going on. We'll be talking about volcanoes and earthquakes, so on. We'll be talking about that. Plus, we've got a zillion, well, maybe not quite a zillion, but we've got a lot of questions that you have written into us during the month and that we didn't finish up from last week. So we're going to try to cover some of those as well. You can still, at the bottom of the screen, right down here, you can still punch the button, and it will give you an ability to write into us and to ask us a question. So if you're watching this in an archived version, because this program tonight will be up in about 24 hours from now up on our website. And we've got so much information, you probably won't be able to write fast enough to get it all down. So that you're probably going to want to go back to the archive edition of this to be able to check it out. And so if you're watching on the archive, right now, well, right now, meaning whenever you're watching in the future, but right now you're watching right now. And so if you're watching in the archive, punch right down there, and you're going to be able to, that button will then push up a little screen that you're going to be able to write and send us in your question. We also want to be able to remind you that no matter what country you're watching from, you can punch on that screen and you can push on that button, and it will then allow you to send us the question that you may have concerning what I just said, and we will try to get to those as well. We want to also remind you that we now have mobile access to the archive. So all of our archives are available through mobile access, like iPhone, iPad, most Android devices. However, we're still waiting for the BlackBerry issue to be resolved and to support our system. So all the others are supporting the system, but BlackBerry for some reason isn't quite doing it. So we just want to remind you that you have that capability. Okay. We also have, they want me to, this little note right here. They also want me to announce that there's a raffle winner. We had a raffle that was up. You participated in the ISD online survey that we put out. And so we had this because we value your comments and we value your responses, and we know it takes time for you to fill out this survey. We drew 3 names of people that get gift certificates to our website, and those 3 winners are, drum roll. Those 3 winners are Helen, or Helene, Helene from New Hampshire, Shirley from Massachusetts, and Laurel from New York. Okay, so it's Helene from New Hampshire, Shirley from Massachusetts, and Laurel from New York. So we actually do have 3 people that won, and I'm sure that you know by now how to claim your prizes, because I'm sure we've contacted you. So just let all of y'all know that we actually did have winners and who those winners were. Okay, I want to talk about a little bit about the perfect storm and some things that you've written in and asked us about, and I want to go into some of those things. One thing that really concerns me about the perfect storm is the issue that's going on in Europe right now. The banking system, the general euro condition, as most of you probably already know, I received from heaven some information that basically told me, or that showed me pretty clearly, that the euro is going to collapse. I don't know this for sure. I don't know if that means total annihilation, but I think it does mean, for lack of a better term, an evolution of the euro into another currency. And I believe that there is some things that are going on right now in order to provoke that to happen. There's corruption that is going to be exposed in the banking systems in a couple of the European countries that are is going to promote the dissolution or the collapse of the euro. And when the euro collapses, ours won't be that far behind it. There's a whole thing that I'm not really one for conspiracy theories. I know many of you that are watching probably are. I don't know about conspiracies. All I know is what the Lord has shown me, and so I'm strictly going on that. I'm not trying to figure things out. I'm just going to stay in that arena as much as possible. Now I have tried. You'll see later on that I've done a little bit of study on some other issues we'll be talking about. But the turmoil in Europe, I believe, could quickly spread to the United States across the Atlantic to us. I believe it could incredibly damage struggling economies. I believe that there will be countries that are going to opt out of the European market and make it thus much more biblical, prophetic centric, if I can say it that way. Biblically prophetic centric to some of the things the Bible has to say about what we might call the last days. I believe that this crisis is probably going to be a whole lot worse than the Lehman Brothers situation is. But there's a comment that struck me that I want to quote, and it's from the New York Times. And George Soros, according to the New York Times, made this statement. He said this crisis has the potential to be a lot worse than Lehman Brothers, said George Soros, the hedge fund investor, citing the lack of an authoritative pan-European body to handle a banking crisis of this severity. So he goes on to say this is why the problem is so serious. You need a crisis to create the political will for Europe to create such an authority. Now, what he just said in that sentence is that the current authority is not strong enough in Europe. The current authority does not have broad enough powers in Europe, and when you need a stronger authority, and a crisis is the only way to get that stronger authority in position to rule. That's why from heaven, but at the same time, that's why when you look around at the fig leaves that are budding, so to speak, he just talks about when you see the fig tree putting forth its buds, you see these buds, and you begin to realize there is concerted efforts by various people in order to change governing bodies so that power shifts from one group of people to another group of people. And that's why I'm now finding in the natural things the Lord began to show me 3.5 years ago and beyond that, and longer than that, that a new European community is going to be formed, or maybe a true European community. There's something about that word true that I got the other night. True European community, or true something. Anyway, we'll find out what that means as time goes on. Then in the geophysical arena, there's something going on in the world that is catching the eye of scientists, that goes right along with the coming perfect storm and the earthquake activity that the Lord began to show me would happen. And so the question is being increasingly asked, is the number of earthquakes that we're having increasing? Are major earthquakes becoming much more frequent than they have been historically? Is the aftermath of the magnitude 5.8 earthquake in Virginia, which is by West Coast standards, it's a very small earthquake. I mean, my wife and I it sounds like we almost died. We didn't almost die in it, but we lived in California in a Big Bear earthquake, which is 50, 60 miles away from where we were, and it was a 7.4, and I mean, that house was rocking and rolling. We definitely got out of bed because it happened early in the morning. We got out of bed, ran downstairs. I've never seen walls move without glass breaking like that. It was incredible. So, but it's catching a lot of people's attention that there's earthquakes where there's not normally earthquakes. There's hundreds of years that have gone by in some cases, and in a couple of cases, 1,000 years have gone by, and there's been earthquakes in places where there's never not been an earthquake in a long, long time, decades or centuries, if not a millennium. So here's what I've been able to find. We're on a pace to have more than twice the number of major earthquakes, by major 5.0 or greater. Twice the number of major earthquakes than we did in 2001, just 10 years ago, and there's been a steady increase of those earthquakes. So in 2001, we had 1,361 earthquakes 5.0 or greater. This year, we're on a pace to have over 2,800 of those. We've got nearly 2,700 right now. We're on a pace to have 2,800 earthquakes, over twice the number of earthquakes than we did 10 years ago. And so while the Virginia earthquake of 5.8 wasn't that great of an earthquake as far as breaking buildings and so on, I have found that God speaks in many ways. Job chapter 33, verse 14 says this. It says, God speaks in many ways, and man does not perceive it. Sometimes God speaks in ways that isn't all that earth-shattering. It's not like the incredible earthquake that New Zealand had, or Japan had, or Chile had, or Haiti had. But it's significant. It's that still small voice, but speaking in a way that we should be able to recognize. When the Washington Monument was cracked, that was a sign and a signal from heaven that something is going wrong. The system in Washington is cracked. The structure in Washington is cracked. The infrastructure in Washington, in the United States, obviously, is cracked. And so, yes, while I understand the coming perfect storm is not just a USA-centristic event, it's a global issue. We'll talk a little bit about that shortly. It's certainly, there are signs that happen in the United States that since we're based here, we are pretty well familiar with. So at the same time that this happened, on the same day, a magnitude 5.3 earthquake rattled the area along the Colorado and New Mexican border, which it hadn't done. I mean, that was a very unusual. It was, in fact, it was the largest earthquake that region had seen in over 40 years. And so we're looking at the uniqueness of something. God speaks in unique ways, not just in what some might call flamboyant or extravagant or huge ways. He also speaks in unique ways. And sometimes size does not make the uniqueness of how he speaks. So Job 33:14, remember, God speaks in many ways, a man does not perceive it. I'm looking for right now a vision I had probably 25 years ago. I'm looking for it because I want to quote it right, and I haven't quoted it all that often, and so I need to go back. And so before I talk about that, I want to make sure that I'm doing it right. But in this vision or dream, an angel told me that certain things were going to happen when I saw Washington tilt. And so I said, okay, what do you mean? And I said, Washington tilt, what does that mean? He said, watch this. And he takes his finger and he hits the top of the Washington Monument, and the Washington Monument goes, it tilts. And I realized that when I saw that happen, that the other thing that he told me was going to happen. Now, again, maybe I shouldn't have shared that, except I just wanted to say that there's something going on in our nation's capital, in the United States of America, in the capital of the United States, that is highly